All right, welcome to our workshop on converting your program to online and blended, and that includes your courses, online courses as well. I am your facilitator, Leroy Hill, and for the next 3 hours, we are going to critically engage on that whole process of what it means to have quality online programming. And so I'm really honored to have my staff members here joining me with me. We have Dr. Juliet Jones, Mr. Mark Cassia, Mr. Javed Muhammad, Mr. Randy Duku, and Miss Shala. Miss Shala Phillips is on. She's on as settled host. This is out of pure, so you know persons who are part of this whole process. I want to thank you for taking the time for joining us, and certainly we want to thank you for doing that. We're going to start by doing a quick icebreaker, and I want to ask you at this time if your online journey, if your online teaching journey was a road trip, where would you be right now? I'd really be interested in getting an understanding of where you would be right now. We'll take 1 minute for that, only 1 minute. If you can put that, and you can go to menti.com, and the code is 35113057. It's on and it's in the chat. Thank you, Javed. The link is also in the chat. And we also have the link if you want to go to menti.com and just put that in quickly. I'll go ahead and take off that QR code. We also have the QR code if you want to scan with the QR code. That is going to be there for a while. So I see some persons are in. Great. Are you in? Get one person say pit stop for upgrade. Yes, the Menti code. If you go to menti.com, 35, thank you, Mark, 35113057. Thank you so much. I'll take off this here. Great. It's 35 of us. I'm really looking forward to seeing you. Put your response. Put your response. If you're having difficulty out of accessibility, you could also post it in the chat. But you have 5 options. You have 5 options. The 5 options are still in the driveway, on the highway, pit stop. You are on a pit stop. I've been driving, but I need to refuel and tune up. And the other option is flying ahead. I am flying ahead, cruise control. I'm on cruise control. Or is it that you're taking detours, finding my way, and sometimes smooth, sometimes bumpy? What's your online teaching road trip like? I'd really love to get an idea. And I think we have a good idea now. And it's really great to see that we have those who are explorers, we have those who are leading the way, and I am really thankful for a perfect mix for us to really take part into this collaborative activity. So we see persons on different parts of the whole journey, but it seems most of you are really just taking a pit stop. You are just taking a pit stop. You've been doing this thing for a while. And we see the second highest is actually they're on the highway. The GPS is on and moving towards relying on heavily on directions. And I really love that. And it says a lot. All right, so we'll move on quickly. And we may want to ask ourselves, why are we here? The reason we're here. And one of the reasons I reflected on this in 2023 is that the demand for online is increasing. It's still growing. It's growing. It's not getting less. It's just increasing. And it is our goal as educators to really rise to the rising demand. I should declare out of transparency that there are some slides here provided here that are AI powered. We are in the AI education era. And so I want to declare that I have some slides that are AI powered. And in those cases, you will see a little icon indicating that the AI was used. And AI perhaps was used in generating the color code, the scheme, and or the particular slide. All right. So I want you to know that we have a full guide for the next 3 hours. For the full guide, you really want to ensure that you keep this. This is our guide for the entire workshop. So if you can grab this, keep this in a safe place. I'm going to wait a little while. Wait a little while so you can grab the link. The link is actually, you can, on the QR code, but you could also see it in the chat. Thank you, Javed. You could also grab the guide there. So much. So thank you so much for taking your time. In the interest of time, we will keep on posting it, but we'll keep on moving on. I must stress here that at the University of the West Indies, we are really honored. St. Augustine campus, University of West Indies, St. Augustine campus, we do have what is called a campus education philosophy. And our campus education philosophy helps us to be inclusive around creating that active and inclusive learning environment. And so we see all these aspects here. And one of the things I want to just acknowledge here is that the captioned is open, so you can actually see that we have closed caption, and you can see that we are committed to ensuring that you can read while we are going on. All right. Today, you are successful into this session if at the end of the session you do 3 things. We're going to do 3 things. And what we want to be able to do is to be able to describe blended and online within the context of our UE, St. Augustine, and particularly our accreditation ACTT context. We really want to look at that. What do we mean by that? We really want to be able to indicate quality program. What are some of the indicators of quality and effectiveness for blended and online programs? And there are 2 frameworks we're going to look at, CRAC and the Oscar rubric. We're going to explain what those are, and then we want to critically evaluate some programs. We want to really critically evaluate. We want to use some scenarios, and then we'll be working in groups to have those. Our agenda today, we will break at 11:30 for 10 minutes today. But today we really want to focus on those 3. This is our agenda. The agenda, by the way, is in the course guide. You can also access that from the course guide. All right. Thank you so much. And before we start, we want to begin with a really reflection on some of the common themes that we see when it comes to blended and online. And these are some of the terms that we see. And I want to focus on those 3 because it begins to set the tone and set the context. And we see, for example, the term distance education, online education, those are used. But distance education, online education is a subset of distance education. It could mean that it's non-technology, because when it started, it actually started with correspondent courses through the mail. And if we go down through the historical, we could also remember when video cassettes and VHS tapes were sent and CD-ROMs were sent. So some of it became technology enabled. Eventually, when the internet was formed, we began to see the change into more online technology, web-based tools. So our understanding of distance education, many times for many persons, they use online to mean distance education. But when the teaching and learning takes primarily over the web, that's why we call it, online. And today we use the word blended or hybrid. And this is a term that combines face-to-face and classroom instructions. They are used interchangeably, blended and online, but they are different. All right, they are different. So we see in terms of the terminology, we want to really come to a cool understanding of what makes the difference between a blended and a hybrid. I'm going to come back to that. Because it's important for us to really come to grips to when we say blended and hybrid. So when we say hybrid, we're saying there that some students attend class in person and others participate virtually. All right. Um, and we see here that mix that gives students that authority and power to choose the whether they want to do online or whether they want to do in person, but that is done at the same time. All right. As opposed to when we do blended is when we all of them are moving in unison or symmetry. So we say this time the class meets online and this time we meet in person. That makes it a blended. No, I don't want you to get too confused, but I just want you to know that these are some terminologies used interchangeably, but there are some slight nuances. One of those nuanced terminology is the terminology of high flex. And high flex obviously is not a new thing, but obviously begins to let us see that is hybrid flexible. The idea that gives students that agency to choose, and you as the facilitator will support them in any way that they would like. And that's quite a challenge. That's quite a challenge, which is why we are very careful in saying, okay, you don't have, our approach is more adopting a blended approach. And when we really want to go to high flex classroom, we really see that the need for supporting students in the online, the face-to-face setting at the same time, and also providing that sort of support that's needed in those spaces and those things. So we know for a fact that this is a challenge. This is a challenge. All right. We want to move on quickly. One of the things that we begin to look at is the whole idea of what makes blended and online so different to face. And there are some who have began to theorize for a while now. And one of those is Michael Moore's transactional distance theory. And Michael Moore, by the way, is described as one of the grandfathers of distance education. And for him, he puts the whole idea of quality online education having those three pillars. And we can see where we have those pillars in our face-to-face. But which of these do you think, which pillar from this screen here, you can put it in the chat, which pillar do you think speaks more to distance and online? Because we certainly do have dialogue in our face-to-face. We certainly do have structure, very structured approach in how the course is designed. But which factor? Yes, Lisa is saying autonomy. Anyone else? Anyone else? Autonomy. Very good. Autonomy, Earl. Autonomy. This is where quality online and the research has shown in terms of what we call learner agency. So that idea of autonomy there for distance education really calls for us to build various things, and we want to look at certain things like RSI. We're gonna come back to that from that standpoint. So I'm really happy that we can talk about that. We can look a little bit more about that in detail. Another theoretical standpoint that looks at distance education is Simonson's equivalency theory. And for Simonson, he simply says that we try to provide an equivalence experience. You can't provide the same. It's not about sameness, it's about equivalence. And so what does that look like? It means that you have to think about the outcomes. You have to think about the outcomes, especially if you think these particular outcomes can be done online. You have to try and see what changes you can make. If the changes can be made, then question on whether it should be an online or blended. And so these are some of the things that we want to discuss in a very meaningful way. We see that happening. So the core idea is that distance education should be designed to provide an equivalent experience for all students, regardless of how they are delivered. And there's another one I know that is quite popular from more the Canadian standpoint, and that's the community inquiry. And in the community of inquiry at Athabasca University, they've put the idea of presences and the whole idea of a social presence as online educators. You want to ensure that persons have a feeling of that they are persons. The idea to project themselves socially and emotionally within your class. Then the whole idea of cognitive presence, obviously, same thing. We want to ensure that within your online spaces, you have that sort of idea in which learners construct meaning and understanding and reflect on the learning and teaching. And the whole idea of teaching presence, really, that has to do how you direct the two. How do you ensure as a facilitator that you can encourage that cognitive and teaching, and from that standpoint. So it's that sort of mix. I like those three frameworks, and those frameworks really help to give us a concept of what quality online should look like. And I am mindful here that we did look at that blended and online. I'm mindful that I want to return to that because we now want to get a clear understanding of when we blend. What does that mean? What does that mean? And so for blending, we want to categorize blending in four different models. All right, you have the rotational model, we have the flex model, we have the a la carte CAT model, and we have the enriched virtual model. So those models really help us to see how well we mix. But in our context here at UE, the moment you decided to include the online component of 1 credit or 12 hours, we classify that as blended. All right? And we have that tool, the modalities that we have. So it is a very flexible, because what we want to do is to have the definitions that support the various blends, all right, the various blends and the various things that we do. And we do see the increased demand for persons to do more online, and you have our learning management system. So what we do is that we say, okay, fine, it's a face-to-face class, but we enhance it with online or web-based, so we call those face-to-face flex. All right, so it is important for us to see that definition from that standpoint. Another blend format that we use here is called the multi-campus delivery, where one instance of a course is delivered for all campuses. So sometimes you have low numbers, you might have 5 students from this campus, and so that particular course, you apply for approval through BOSS. Multi-campus allows students to register for the course across campus. Rather than canceling the course, the students can take the course. So that's a form of a blend, if you want to say it that way, or online, depending on where you are, because the course actually is physical somewhere for some students. All right, so these are some operational definitions for us here at UE St. Augustine. At the program level, when we say a course is blended, we mean that it consists a mix of face-to-face and online courses. And I know you might be saying, okay, yeah, that's commonplace. When we say online program, it means that 100%, and we're going to look and see some of those. But we do have the sort of emerging where we see most courses are developed face-to-face, with some courses being done blended or online. but X. And that X there remains part of institutional policy as to what they would allow and what they wouldn't allow. In terms of our context, that has not been defined, but we do know persons. We can say that our policy is informed by what ACT supports when it comes to substantive change. And what do we mean by substantive change? We're going to come to that later in the presentation, but we want to ensure that there's a certain threshold that you don't go beyond to really ensure that your program does not move from its original state from that standpoint. All right, I want to pause for a little while. I know we gave very quickly. I want to go here first just to give you a better understanding. Let's take 1 minute to reflect on these various formats, the 4 formats here. Let's take a while to read it through. Joanne, go ahead. I see Joanne, your hand was up. Go ahead, Joanne.
Sorry about that. That was a mistake.
That's okay. That's okay. So, Joanne, while I have you, which of these which of these would you more align yourself to?
Probably the flex model.
Flex model. Good.
Um,
Any reasons why?
um, let me see. The as needed. The combination is very interesting to me and students. I mean, I guess I'm coming from it from seeing the benefits that I had in COVID. It seemed so long ago, as well as now. So that would be why I would choose that one, because
Yeah.
the face-to-face, I really enjoy it, and the students enjoy it. But we absolutely had a good aspect of it with being able to go online. Sorry to sound so
Yeah.
incoherent, but I'm still trying to put all my thoughts together.
That's okay. That's okay. That's fine. Anyone else? Lisa, I see that your mic is on. Go ahead.
Dr. Hill, I actually have a question.
Yes.
How is blended received by the students? My concern is this. 1 minute you're face-to-face, next minute you're online. Is it confusing for them? What are really the benefits of going blended?
Okay. That's an excellent question, Lisa. And for most persons, they would just cite flexibility. Flexibility, not just from the stakeholder student side, but also to the faculty. And we've seen that, especially in certain programs that we are offering, where persons take affordance of that. Obviously, you must have clear communication as how do we make that transition between blended and online. And one of the difficulties, one of those things with difficulty with the high flex is that persons are not sure. You don't even know when the students, because the agency is within the students. They may choose today to be online, they may choose today to be face to face, and those sort of things. We want to ensure that this is something that we can manage. But for the blend, the moment we actually have 1 credit or 12 hours translated into the online, we call that blend. And so it can be that you decide on one particular session, you translate that into an online synchronous class, or it could be a sort of asynchronous series of lectures that your students look at. All right. Does that answer your question, Lisa?
Maybe I want to throw the question out to the participants and ask if anybody's using it and what sort of results they've gotten.
Great. I see Reverend Peter Timothy is helping us respond.
I was really treating with your question and not this one, but I don't know if it may flow to that. I'm at the seminary.
Okay.
Okay. And our situation is, of course, that the major cohort of our students are men preparing for the Roman Catholic priesthood. However, we have been expanding our courses, and the seminary academic block, as we call it, has a history of lay people being involved. The situation where you are flex, where you are with regard to online and so on, because some of the lay people who want to study because they are far away from Mount St. Benedict, because they are also holding full-time jobs and that sort of thing. The agency, or the where you are able to have people who are unable to come face to face online, and you can go to that sort of blended program where they are able periodically to come in face to face, but the majority they may do online and so on. That is what, for me, is the benefit of us going there, because if we do that, we can have a larger cohort of people who want to study our courses and may not be able to do the face to face as the primary group, I would say, who we teach.
Thank you. And I think it really gives discussion to the flexibility for students. Go ahead, Rona. I see Rona, your hand is up. Go ahead. Kathy Ann, sorry.
I would choose the rotation model
Uh-huh.
because I'm a language teacher. So the face-to-face gives us the benefit of that social interaction with the student, because with communication, it's just more than words. It's also, the body language and so on. So the face-to-face would give us that. But the online, of course, is almost like a flipped classroom. So in the online, we can present the information to the students, all the grammar and that kind of thing, as it says here, and then come face-to-face and actually get the practice. So for our language teacher, the rotation model would be the one that I would prefer.
Excellent. And I mean, and the reason why we present those is because it gives you some ideas in how you can actually blend from that standpoint. So thank Kathy Ann for your experience there. Michelle, go ahead.
Yes, and and I want to agree 100% with Rona, because I'm also language, English communication, and face to face is definitely necessary. But two things. One, I would choose the rotation model because for me, that might erase some of the confusion, and both student and faculty can plan better so we know what's coming up and when it's coming up and so on. So I would go with the rotation model. But there's one thing that keeps, gnawing at me, and it's this: for anything, not just students, we need to prepare.
Yeah.
And I think we will be doing ourselves and even the students a disservice when we don't prepare them, have some preparatory something that guides them on taking, this whole thing, taking responsibility for your learning. Because while we say, oh, the students like online, what do they do when they are online? Are they really engaged? How many people have logged on and stepped away and then come back? So we have to, I really do believe we have to be careful with the whole online business now. Yeah, people want it. At the seminary, you have adult people there who are taking responsibility, know what it's like. But the vast majority, I believe, and I could be wrong, are online only because it's an easy route and there is little engagement with the material and with the lecturer and with the students as you would have it in a face-to-face setting. So how do we manage that?
And this is such a wonderful opportunity to dovetail. Michelle, thank you for that, because when we often think sometimes convenience for the teacher, but really we should be thinking the students. It should be student-centered. Is this what they want in terms, is this something that we can deliver in a blended and online format? We always have to think about it, especially when it comes to quality, which is why I always go back to the whole idea of learner autonomy. And it is important that you allow students to build learner autonomy through clear orientation, through clear ways of building those soft skills that they need, because they may not have that level of learner agency or learner autonomy from that sense. And because of that, a lot of programs that are online, they have many supporting things to ensure that although these persons don't fit a particular profile of an online student, that we support them in this ways to ensure that they learn, that they can build learner autonomy and agency over the course of the program. And I know some programs that actually have an entire course with doing your program online, and they take them through a set of different modules and so forth. So Michelle, you are so correct with that. Kathy Ann, and we'll move on quickly because we are pressed for time. We press for time.
Thanks so much, Dr. Hill. I really wanted to say, and it reflects the contributions, that it really depends on your target audience. And I think we cannot negate the fact that technology-enhanced learning is a present consideration. Students engage with technology, and I think so it's important for us to leverage that. So I would prefer for undergraduate students or transitioning students, a rotational model, because it helps us orient them. It helps them with that transition into higher ed. And it also helps us to give them that opportunity to feel that sense of belonging to their group, to their peers, and to the campus, which sometimes, and I'm speaking from also the student services perspective, sometimes you would tend to overlook that, but it is so really important to ensure that the students feel that sense of belonging. And that would support the learning. So I just wanted to put that in there. Thanks.
And Dr. Lewis, if I may, that sense of belonging aligns well with the whole idea of social presence. All right, how do you go about doing that? iPhone, you're on, but someone is before you. David is before you. If you could allow him to speak. Go ahead, David, quickly. And iPhone, can you rename so we have who is captured, who is speaking?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Hill. I just wanted to add that for me, as a physical education tutor, I've taught physical education in the online platform during COVID, and I've actually continued to use it post-COVID. But I see that sometimes online teaching physical education has a limitation in terms of your ability to grasp all of the concepts within physical education. There are some things that you must see the student or must workshop with the student in a space where they have an opportunity to demonstrate, right? And also to give feedback from in the physical realm. Online sometimes limits their ability to give that level of feedback. So I've had to find innovative ways to be able to garner the feedback necessary to properly assess students in that space. Secondly, the online space requires, for me, as much preparatory work to make sure that the students are engaged, but also to solicit feedback at every stage from the information that's being shared, because there are some, I call them dead spots, where no one is giving feedback, right? And you're wondering if the information that you're sharing is really taking root with them, or if everyone is totally lost. So that for me is the balance that's required. I think I pivot between the flex model and the rotation to be able to overcome some of those challenges.
Thank you, David. I appreciate that. I really picked up from you and the contributions that each person made in terms of which format that aligns best. iPhone, you want to go ahead, iPhone? I see that your mic is on. I guess not. So we want to move on quickly. We want to now look at when we look at the UE process, because there's a process that we really want, and I want to reinforce what Dr. Lewis, Kathy and Lewis mentioned. Kathy, you mentioned in terms of being fit to the student stakeholder, but we also have to look in terms of the outcome. Some of those outcome, and David, you hinted to it, because for physical education, there are some of those things we certainly can translate into an online. We need those those competencies, and we know some of us work better in the face-to-face because of that. And I think, as we rightly can reflect, the COVID-19 really forced us to really rethink the utility of the online, the importance of it, and what can happen, and certainly how we can rethink doing things. For our curriculum review process, we have our workflow, and this workflow invites us to ensure it begins at the faculty level. So your proposal, I'm going to focus a little bit on the sort of proposal from the course on online. The same instrument that is used or document that is used to approve a face-to-face program is the same one we use for online. There's certain aspects of the proposal that you would need to complete to really ensure that you get approval for. I'm gonna focus on some of that, but this is the process more or less. It begins at the faculty level, and you can see where the proposal goes. And we actually right now have we have a curriculum review system that is fully online. One of the things we've tried to do is to automate the whole process. If someone can put that link in the chat. And thank you, Dr. James. In terms of students' environments are not always conducive to online as well. Certainly correct. And so this curriculum review system is what we use presently. And I do know that some persons we've seen quicker turnaround. It's been more transparent, and certainly we see that being used in a very important, effective way. The program, as we mentioned, the program development approval process at UWI St. Augustine, we initiates from either a change of modality or what we call a new program. And when it comes to an undergraduate program, it certainly goes through ACWAC before it goes to Board of Undergraduate Studies. And we see here, and let's go to the next one that gives a little bit more detail. We see here that there is a list of different multi-tiered validation process. So settle, library, bursary, input at the campus level, we see that. And when you finish that, then you submit it. Once you get approval from library, bursary, and settle, then you would be able to submit it either to ACWAC or the Campus Committee Graduate Studies. And we see there is also need for us to think about the external agencies like GATE and funding and so forth. So think of those before, because sometimes persons reach all the way to the end, and when they realize, oh, there's an issue with GATE, there's and so forth. All right, so we really encourage you to do that. To access the documents, we have those on, for example, for BOS, we have the OBOS, and we also have our website. Actually, you have the templates linked. So I'm asking someone to post that link about the policies and template from our website in the chat, please. So we do have those policies and templates available to you. The policies are not settled policies. I think one of the things persons have been saying, okay, settled templates, they are not settled templates. These templates are the approved. So the BOS would have approved their own template, and the Board of Undergraduate Studies would have had their own template approved. So we are the custodians. These are not our templates. So don't get vexed if we say, okay, fine. No, this is not the correct template, because what happens when it goes to the approval committee, it's sent back, and all that hard work that you've done becomes difficult, and it goes. So we really want to ensure that you have the correct template. And we notice one of the things here is actually a course outline. By the way, we know that you use sometimes course outline and course proposal interchangeably, but just for the simplicity of it, the course outline is that student front-facing document. That document you give to the students. And so we do have a template that is approved as well from our campus standpoint. Sometimes that terminology, syllabus, is used, or course guide is used to refer to the course outline. I want to say here, we would have asked you to look at the guidelines, and these guidelines actually operationalize one of the policies that we have, which is the Quality Online QAU policy for blended and online. And one of the things we took our time is to ensure that we have a framework that can support you while you are thinking of getting approval from ACTT for your course to go online and blended. And so these guidelines, we would have sent the link, but we could also put the link in the chat. We would have sent the link in the before the session, and you also have the link in the resources segment of the workshop guide. You also have that there as well. But this, by the way, this is supposed to be approved at academic board on Friday, but we've received approval from ACWAC, and we certainly know that this is an opportunity for us to really ensure that whatever we're doing online and blended fits within a framework that provides quality and equality. One of the things I want to really share is the whole idea of substantive change. When ACTT says substantive change, I want to go back. When ACTT says substantive change, they are actually asking us to look at other things as well. The whole idea of the hours, how you're calculating the hours, and if those hours translate to the online and how much of it, as opposed to how you did it previously, that's an important aspect. But indication of substantive change, we also have things like the learning outcomes. If your learning outcomes change drastically from what was there, it is classified as a substantive change. Later on, when we look at in terms of the number of hours a program can actually offer online, and so ACTT has give us a limitation, and I'm going to come to that in a while. But these are factors we should consider when you're changing a program from face-to-face or a course from face-to-face to online. In a program, you can have X amount of courses that's face-to-face, but the moment you begin to move beyond a certain threshold, then substantive change begins to form some goal. I want to look at the proposal document quickly. And the program document has administrative information. So the administrative information would include things like the prerequisite, things like the learning objectives, the outcomes. And so and we actually provide little signposts. So what actually should form part of each within the proposal. They provide that sort of guidance for you. But we also provide consultations. We do provide consultations for persons. If there's anything unclear, we provide consultations through our online booking system. So we do encourage persons to reach out if you're having challenges with those. Again, the administrative information, think about it carefully. Who is offering the program or course? Who is this program for? Think about when it will be offered, the timing it will take for you to create that sort of quality online. Think about it. It's not just an overnight thing you can do overnight. There's a lot of planning that needs to take place. How many credits are you thinking of offering online as opposed to face-to-face? All of those are important questions that we want to think of and we want to share. Another factor that we know is the whole idea of the hours. I'll just straight to it in terms of the hours. And what does that mean? I mean, obviously, this is not a session on calculating contact hours. We actually will be doing a front-facing session on that. But we are happy to know that there's sometimes the workload of students are not considered. So your workload, the student workload, is a key part of understanding or making that translation and to ensure that your program is not actually doing too much. All right. So having that clear calculation of contact hours is an important thing. And just to be clear about it is that when we use the word contact hours, we refer to contact hours to mean the amount of time in hours spent with the learner and with direct contact with teaching, and that includes labs and other things. But when we use the word notional hours, think about the overarching experience of the students. They have to spend time reading. They have to spend time looking at online videos. They have to spend time looking at doing labs, self-study, and all those different things. And so that becomes part of the overarching experience. What we've done is that we actually have two tools, and we are piloting these tools. We started piloting these tools last semester. As part of our support to faculty is that we have the boss contact hours calculator. And you notice the AI thing here. This is a tool that has been vibe coded, and so it's placed there for your use. And obviously it's in testing. So this is the one that we have for boss. And boss, by the way, calculates their contact hours slightly differently to Board of Graduate Studies. So we also have one for Board of Graduate Studies. Another factor that we want to take into consideration is the whole idea of the assessments. And I'm going to come to that later in terms of what sort of assessments make for meaningful online engagement and interaction and learning. But that is a very, very important aspect in the whole process, that whole matrix. All right. So we're gonna pause for a little activity. It's now 10:46. And I want to take a pause for a little activity. We're gonna take 10 minutes for this, quick 10 minutes. We're gonna break you up in 8 groups. Here's what we're gonna do, because I really want to see from a short description. You go on page 7 and 8 of the guide. If you can't access the guide, we'll put it in the chat again. But if you go on page 7 and 8, you will see the full scenarios. We have 8 groups. Scenario A is going to look at groups 1 to 4, going to look at that. Scenario B, we have group 2 and 5. Scenario C, 3. I ask that you take a screenshot. If you could take a screenshot of this. In fact, what I will do is that I will also take a screenshot and put it in the chat. So you can grab that. Any questions before we open up the groups? Any questions?
No questions.
Excellent. Excellent. So we have a term. By the way, I should have mentioned you will be sharing your responses in a shared Google Sheet, which is like an Excel. At the bottom, if you look here at the bottom of this is where you'll find your group numbers. So group 1, you will post your responses in that tab, in group 2, and so forth. All right, is that understood? A thumbs up if you understand. What exactly are we doing? What I'm doing, we are checking for knowledge in terms of understanding what we mean by those various formats. And in the score, and Diane, in the document, you will see the scenarios. All right, and so we want you to be able to tell us where we are in terms of the format. All right. All right, let me just post that to everyone. Welcome back. We know that you were thinking about this in terms of the red flags. What were the red flags? Especially given our definitions and I'll go quickly. We don't need both groups to report, but just focusing on scenario A, one group can give us the responses. For scenario B, either group 2 or 5, scenario C, either 3 or 6. And if we could do that in 1 minute for each, then we'll take this done in 4 minutes. All right? So scenario A, who wants to go?
Okay, so we looked at the scenario, and the red flags that we identified is that it has a mandatory face-to-face requirement, but it contradicts what was advertised as 100% online delivery. So we have seen that this could create a problem for students having access to the course, and also it would not have met some standards as it relates to transparency, accurate disclosure of the delivery mode as well.
Excellent. Taisha,
So
excellent.
the quality fixes that we thought would have been best is to advertise this course as a blended learning, where it would state clearly there's a mandatory face-to-face component, and also with looking at the quality assurance, ensure that the program approval is done and the marketing material will be adjusted to the same.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's
All
give
right.
round of applause. Is this group 1 or group 4?
Group 1.
Group 1. Thank you, group 1. I'm not seeing the emoticons. Yes, thank you, Antoinette. Let's give them a round of applause. I'm seeing that coming in.
Yes.
In the,
Thank you,
thank you
Taisha.
so much. All right, let's go to scenario B. The ghost contact hours. That's the hint. And we had Elna, we had Kathy Ann, Raquel Sati, Shalene, Tennille Allen, and we also had group 5, which was Angelique, Eric, Indra, Sylvia Roseanne. Nobody wants to report on scenario B.
Well, I can jump in for group 5.
Thank you, Angelique.
Rachel, though, if you want to jump in with me. I don't know I didn't really take down notes. Yes, so we discussed a number of things, but the ghost contact hours, the red flag that we identified was the asynchronous, and being able to really evaluate the online asynchronous engagement. We discussed tutorials a lot around how do we fix the quality fix being assigning the students specific one, that they have to spend the hour online asynchronously, but how do we evaluate that and how do we assess it? So we discussed a number of things and different scenarios. One, being able to count and tell the students you have to engage, 8 to 10 times. You have to respond to this many discussion points in the online environment. We also had more structured approaches as well, where students would be given a concept or given a reading, and they would have to respond to that. And it has to be a quality response. It's not about quantity per se only. So yes, you have to do it the 8 to 10 times, but you also have to engage in a quality way, using the course materials, engaging in the tasks. So we talked about tasks. We talked about being able to assess and ensure that the students spend that full hour in the online environment asynchronously.
Thank you.
I've covered it all, folks.
Yes, so Angelique, would this be a blended course?
Yes, this is a blended course.
Okay, so on the general scheme of things, we'll call it blended. But in terms of our definition, where we said 1 credit, you translate 1 credit or 12 contact hours into the online.
Yes.
Would we say that is blended? I
Yes,
think let's ponder on that. Shalene, I think Shalene is going to respond to that.
That's the definition of blended. 1 credit hour online, and which is 12 contact hours, and 24 for face-to-face.
Shalene, go ahead. Thank you, Angelique.
Hi, we also discussed because we were wondering in group 2 because it says 3 hours of face-to-face, but yet it's called blended. And so shouldn't it include an hour of the online, whether it's synchronous or asynchronous, if you're calling the course blended? Because if it's 3 hours of face-to-face, then it in fact is face-to-face.
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Okay.
Yes, you got it. And so which is where they actually student workload. So you call this blended just to show that you're perhaps using technology and so forth. But you are actually saying, okay, we have this 3 hours, that is face-to-face requirement, but you're adding on these things. So that's an issue right there. That's an issue right there, especially when it comes to the workload. And we want to ensure, and I know sometimes calculating the credit hours is a challenge, which is why we created the contact hours tool. And this is why we have also produced some resources, and we intend to provide some additional instructional artifact by the end of the year to support faculty in doing those things, because we do know when it comes to the whole balance, the whole idea of balancing that workload is a very important part for student life, especially when they have different courses and they're trying to make sense of the whole experience. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Angelique. Thank you, Shalene. All right. What about C? What about C?
Group 3.
Yes.
You have a required face-to-face chemistry lab, but you have a technician doing 2/3 of the work, and the students doing analysis. So that's a red flag.
Okay.
Because it's supposed to be a practical exercise for the students to develop certain skills. So that's an issue there. A fix would include analyzing why that was done in the first place, because that is that a real red flag? Because the fact is that if students are developing skills, now we know now there are tools, there are simulations that can be done, elements of it can be done. So when you analyze it, if you're gonna, and 24 is still a lot, it depends on what the research, the analysis would show. But most certainly, you don't want a case where, now students might not object to that, eh?
You're right.
Because they'll have very little work to do. So it might be even flipping that on its head. So it might be either 24/12 split. We look at the possibility of if you have like part-time students who used to get time off and the attendance was low or something like that. But most certainly they have to justify it in terms of the design and the structure based on their learning outcomes. Because they say there's a practical chemistry lab. It was kind of close to my heart because I'm a chemistry teacher. I was a chemistry teacher. So.
Okay, excellent. So you could see the flags easily there.
Yes.
All right, certainly. I mean, would you, for example, if the students have a kit,
yes,
if they do it from distance, they have a kit, they have a kit, and they can do that at home, and then they can do their own analysis from that.
Yes.
So these are ways, but obviously if it's not everyone can give them a kit. Not every program can have a kit. So these are things that you'll have to discuss and ruminate at the program and the institutional level. All right, Selena, I see you have your mic on still. You want to talk? Go ahead.
No, we were group 6 and we had more or less come to that same conclusion that it was labs would require hands-on. So some of this very similar.
Okay.
So it's kind of like the nature of the program as well we have to consider.
Thank you, Celia. Thank you for one. I appreciate that. So let's go to the last scenario. The franchise conflict. And we do see, we've seen some application for some external programs. And we see that sometimes. So if you can get group 7 or 8 quickly, because we're trying to get tight on our time.
So for group 7, what we saw was that there was a conflict in the naming of the program because they said the program was online. However, it required some mandatory face-to-face tutorial sessions. So once you're calling it mandatory, that they have to be, on campus, they can't call it online. So one of the suggested quality fixes is that they could have the tutorial sessions online instead of face-to-face as needed. and students to also look and review the student workload for the program, given that if it is they're looking at the success of the students doing this foreign program, that maybe that's why they put the tutorial session. So it was also suggested that they look at the workload of the program.
Yeah. Yeah. And on the screen, I have some of the reflections. We're seeing a repeat of some of the things that might be happening. That's a possibility that things are repeating. So there is no, if you say it's blended, there's no replacement. So that's important for us to see that. So thank you so much, Tinesia or Tynesia. Am I pronouncing it?
Tanessa.
Tanessa.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So I mean, from this, I would really want to know, let's reflect. Which red flag, don't think about today's session, but this little activity we just did is most common in your specific department. Think about it. When we move from web enhance, what does it actually mean to you? What are some of the things that you need to take into consideration? And if an auditor, for example, moves in, for us at UWE St. Augustine, we use Moodle, My Learning. There is something, I'm going to explain what that substantive interaction means because it has to do with one of the pillars when it comes to quality online. We're going to look at that, especially now that we are going into the different toolkits that we would want to look at. So these are reflections for your own answering or responding from that standpoint. We want to look at the ACTT requirements, and we want to look, and by the way, the ACTT does have a website that is clear on applying for substantive change. And again, I did say I would explain from the ACTT standpoint, when ACTT uses substantive change, especially within the online and distance, they mean the delivery of 60% or more of a program contact hours in the distance education or electronic online format. All right, so typically your face-to-face program would have been face-to-face, but the moment you begin to move 60% of that program online, then that is certainly cause for substantive change. And they've made that special delineation because of the increased demand and request for online. It's been there. It's not that they created it new. It's been there. It's just that it's being highlighted. There are other factors when we look at substantive change, which we spoke about earlier when it comes to the learning outcomes, and the total credit hours and so forth. But this is a particular concern and interest. So we definitely want to look at that, especially if you're introducing new online and distant courses or programs. That certainly is one of the flag things for substantive change. All right. Now, from a process, ACTT, and by the way, this slide was AI generated. They have 4 phases, and by far the most simple one to do is the first stage, which means that you have demonstrated capability to do a single course, and you receive authorization. Most institutions would have at least, I can't validate which ones would, but at least would have had a single course approved. So that means your institution have moved beyond phase 1, you've moved to phase 2 at the program level. Most institutions right now are seeking to become authority to do complete program deliveries. All right, and so we do have programs that are done fully online. And so we want to ensure that as we move through the process, we understand that from a standpoint of the requirements. And we see in this case, we see phase 2. We want to look at program coherence. I think this is where most of us are in terms of program coherence and support. The structure and the delivery of it. We look at the whole idea of the system-wide requirements, and obviously in terms of the evaluation. And this evaluation is done based on not just the quality assurance, but also the toolkits that's provided. And there are two toolkits that we're going to look at. We want to introduce the first toolkit, and the first toolkit is one of those toolkits that has been around for a while. And so this is called the CRAC, which is the Council of Regional Accrediting Commissions, which represents accrediting body in the US, but ACTT has adopted these as their hallmarks. And so these 9 hallmarks provide an opportunity for institutions, departments to respond. And as part of the application process, you are required to respond fully to those 8 areas. And the actual framework is actually in the course guide. You can follow it, but certainly you want to look at things, for example, when we look at effectiveness evaluation number 5, that you have demonstrated from an institutional standpoint and a program planning standpoint of evaluating the effectiveness of the online info offering. And so what are some of the responses? I know something is missing here. What are some of the responses that you would have regarding that? I'm going to go to this other one because that will have the full aspect. So we see here that institution evaluate its effectiveness of online learning, including the extent to which the online learning goals are achieved, and uses the results to enhance the attainment of the goals. So these are things that when you're doing your program for online, you need to respond obviously in a full context. All right. Number 3, if we jump to number 3, online is incorporated into the institutional system of governance and academic oversight. Do you have someone that manages this online program? Especially if you're going to have a lot of persons coming in, how do they manage the student onboarding process, the orientation? What systems do we have in place to support the student success, particularly in the online? Given, I know earlier on we mentioned about students not being able to self-regulate. Some students are not able to do that. How do you build that sort of learner agency? What are some of the things you do? Because those things are taken into consideration. All right. So we do see that, and if I were to look at, for example, number 9 is a big one. Number 9 is a big one because persons may not necessarily trust doing certain assessments online. And so should that program be an online program, or is it a blended program where, because of academic integrity issues, and it might have a program for certification reasons or a program accreditation from a different accreditation body that has concerns, therefore that program cannot be online. You need now to rethink, what am I going to do? Am I going to have the final exam proctored? That makes your program a blended program. So you have to think of all of those things. It's not just trying to convert everything to online because the students want to. You have to think about the integrity of the program, especially those programs that have not just ACTT, but they have all the external accreditation requirements and risk. So there's something I actually reflected on, and I'm not saying that this is a 10th hallmark, but I really think that institutions that have given that they want to do online, that they've given some serious thought when it comes to the leadership component in coordinating the online learning, especially distance and learning. And because although we might see this actually thread into more and more, we've seen the delegation of duties, and what does that look like? So even in your application, although it's not necessary, you may want to really address in terms of the whole idea of coordinating the online learning from a campus-wide standpoint. This is something that we can look. And obviously from a settle standpoint, we can say that we provide support, we provide capacity building support, but certainly this is something that we ought to reflect on from that standpoint. All right. The other toolkit, we're going to go through very quickly through the other toolkit, is what we call the Open Sunny Course Quality Review. And so this is a highly regarded evidence-based rubric. It's a rubric that really looks at the sort of evidence and qualified evidence. So we notice at the course level. So what is encouraged, although we started first with the hallmarks, you're really encouraged if you really want to really show evidence from at your course level, you start with the OSCAR rubric. This, by the way, is embedded within our approval process. So you should know that when we ask you to do the Appendix 1 in the proposal, this is what it's aligned to. And so some persons will say, okay, I'm applying for blended, and they ignore that appendix because you're supposed to respond to every question. What does that do? It gives us the opportunity to say, you thought about assessment and feedback for online. You thought about the whole of technology, use of technology from the standpoint, the whole idea of student readiness and so forth. And so there are 70 indicators. We don't have all 70 indicators in the proposal, but we have at a sort of summary level some of those things, and we encourage persons, we actually link it in the proposal when you are seeking full approval, that you do a self-evaluation of your course and have a peer evaluate, and that way you have the data when you're now moving your program to online. You have evidence from the course level that you're able to say, yes, my course has passed that approval level. Now, I should say this is not the only one. We also have Quality Matters, and Quality Matters is a whole different certification level, but it's really important for us to see that as an important toolkit. I like the OSCAR rubric because you can go to the SUNY website and it explains in full detail. If you can put the link in the chat, Javed, the full detail of each of those areas. What do we mean by getting started in terms of getting started? For example, standard 1, what does that mean? What are some of the review expectations? And so you have all those. One of those things I want to focus on because it's a key part of a recurring challenge that evaluators have seen when they're evaluating online programs. And that refers to regular substantive interaction, RSI. It simply refers to the sort of interaction, a meaningful interaction that takes place. It's not just passive learning. You just the sort of interaction between instructor. So the discussion, well, what we say, interaction between student and student, interaction between student and teacher, but also interaction with the student and the content. You may think that you might be crazy, the students interacting with content, but sometimes we look at content as very passive and so forth, which is why we encourage persons to use tools like H5P. And Mr. Mohammed runs a very good workshop when it comes to H5P. So those things, and we want to ensure that the schedules are there and it's predictable. It's not ad hoc, so students have a clear idea. It's discussion initiated by instructors, not just the student on their own. So these are some of the things we look at. So when we look at substantive interaction, we assume the direct interaction between the learner and the instructor. We assume that there is some sort of pre-recorded lecture videos that's provided. We assume that there is some sort of group discussion that helps students to build competency with not just when we go back to the community of inquiry framework, building that social and community presence. And so it's clear that we see that from that standpoint. And having a live session is not a bad thing. We have to rethink how we do it, especially if you say you have an international program, then you really have to rethink whether or not having synchronous sessions would, especially if persons are outside time zones. I always look and promote University of the People, and I had an opportunity for, and it's important to see the sort of asynchronous thing that happened, but quality, because there are persons across different time zones and the quality is so good. And so it's important for us to see that. And when it comes to the assessment as well, that is also something that we see that's important. All right, so I want to look at that. So when we look at the OSCE and regular and substantive interaction, one of the things to look at is, clear expectation for interaction. So students know how they will be interacting with you, how often, learner to learner interaction opportunities. I mentioned in terms of activities and content, learner to the sort of that's important. The instructor presence and engagement, and the feedback. And sometimes that feedback can be used in, for example, peer assessments and other frameworks. So we see here that's a key part. When we use the word RSI, that's what we actually mean in terms of meaningful, consistent engagement. So it's not just passive, it's not just putting a video and then, so it's important that we see from that standpoint. Any questions before we go on? I know some of you are thinking deeply. So I know that this is something that you will be definitely. Catherine, go along. Go ahead.
Hi, it's a lot to take in. So will the recording be shared? I don't know if you said that.
Oh, yes, we share the recording. The recording will be available on our YouTube channel. I will also provide a copy of the slides, so you can actually reflect on it. But we really encourage you to go to the, for example, OSCE. It's a full set of guidelines and video vignettes and supporting things that look at each component of the rubric. So you may be using the rubric, but you may want to really check your understanding of, am I using this particular aspect of the rubric correctly? You can certainly go there. You can also go there. All right. And it was posted in the chat room. And please subscribe. Catherine, if you go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel, sorry. When a new video comes out, you will be one of the first to get a notification. Oh, we've produced a new video. And so that's some of the things that we encourage you to do. So these two toolkits are important components in translating your program to online. And we've posted, you have a link to the full thing for your reflection and further looking. But it's important for us to see that as an important factor of excellence and quality online. It's not just we are continuing the same remote teaching and calling that online. Some institutions would tell you we are defining what we mean by online. It existed before, and some persons say, oh, I've taught for online during COVID, so I have an online class. And actually, you need to really rethink saying that, because, and I've had colleagues who will say, okay, no, we don't do online. What we do is remote teaching, because we don't really subscribe to some of those quality aspects, especially when it comes to regular substantive interaction. This is a major aspect of quality when it comes to online. So the interaction that persons have. I must pause to big up Paula Marcel, new staff member. I noticed Paula, so certainly welcome. I see you. I saw between the break, I get to see you. So welcome, Paula. We're going to take a wellness break for 10 minutes. We're going to take a wellness break for 10 minutes. I know you'll be thinking, reflecting, but do think of taking that water break or whatever break that you want to take. But we'll break for 10 minutes. When we come back, we want to focus on some of the things that evaluators look for, especially when they're evaluating your program, especially from an external evaluator standpoint. So we'll look at that. Welcome back. I know that some of you benefited from this wellness break, and certainly when you have online classes and when you have online programs, you may not see this in your rubric, but designing for student wellness. And of course, we take those into consideration when we are thinking about the workload, but there are some things that you can do within your online course to really encourage that commitment to student emotional, social, mental wellness. And it's an important component that is usually sometimes seen as a hidden curriculum because there's some faculty online that would make the students. And so it's an important factor that we should take into consideration. But we want to look for the next 10 minutes. By the way, in this segment, we want to spend some time looking at what are some of the things, um, what are some of the things that if someone is coming as an external evaluator, they will look at, in addition to seeing how well your program review was done or your reflection on using your OSCAR rubric, and how well you are able to respond to the 8 hallmarks of ACTT. But at the same time, they want to look at other things. And when we think about online, one of the things we think about is technology and the backbone of our technology or student experience is the learning management system, sometimes called the virtual learning environment. At UWI St. Augustine, our official learning management system is My Learning, which is a port or a port of Moodle. And these are some key things that the evaluators would look for. All right. And we've seen improvement. We've seen improvement in some of those areas. Um, usability here translate to the ease of navigation, the ease of access, the responsiveness to using it on a tablet as opposed to a PC. In reality, when users are online, they may just be coming from work and they may not have access to a PC. And so it's that sort of responsiveness that we want to look at. And one of the things that we think about, and it actually goes back to, it hints to the second one, which is accessibility, compliance to, WCAG 2.1 standards. And that's a standard that when we are converting your course, that we say, okay, fine, that course meets compliance, and we'll look at that in some details later in the session. And in terms of integration, is this talking to different platforms? Can I use my library link for courses, for books and different resources? Do I have to go to an external tool? All of those has to do with the experience. So usually there is the idea of integrating with different application program interfaces, APIs that make things easier. From things like Turnitin to, obviously we know that they have, and even artificial intelligence. So we know that there's some AI tools that have APIs that you can actually embed within your course to give students that sort of experience. Is the LMS always done, or how often is it done? And in terms of its performance. So these are some of the questions we see and things they look at. In terms of security and data protection, that's key because we do know student data should be protected, and the whole idea of authenticating the user, that the person who is using it is the person who is there. So they may have different authentication means, two-factor authentication, and oftentimes this is usually not really reinforced by persons. I encourage online students, when you're online, put a little photo, because persons like to know, and students like to know, I'm interacting with an actual being rather than a silhouette. But this doesn't have to do with security. It actually has to do with the overarching experience, especially when you're taking part in a discussion forum or talking or interacting with a person asynchronously. You really tell them, hey, I really want to encourage that sort of community, but I want to be able to interact with someone, have that feeling that I'm interacting with someone rather than a silhouette. So if you could upload an avatar, I know some persons are not with their photos, but an avatar, something that actually that is certainly helpful. But we think the final item there is perhaps this one can be a deal breaker that often can it give stats on student use? Yes, it can, Lisa. It certainly can. And I'm happy you mentioned that, because one of the things we focus on is learning analytics. And one of the things in my learning, and since you asked the questions, I really, really love that, is the whole idea of activity completion. Because in the LMS, I can see where students are progressing nicely. I can see which concepts they are not grappling because perhaps they did not open this particular reading material or resource, and then they try to attempt the quiz. But I noticed the persons who attempted the quiz got a certain percentage in a particular way, but I can see they did not open these resources and they did the quiz. So you can see that sort of idea is not necessarily that you didn't have it there, but you can begin to make those analytical comparisons and so forth. So yes, in my learning, if you have your course, how many of you have activity completion enabled in my learning? Those of you who use my learning. I know Roy Tech, there are some persons here from Roy Tech. You use Canvas, is it? I think you use Canvas, but certainly in UE St. Augustine, yeah, we use Canvas. Okay, great. And so you should be able to give stats on student use and see which items they're using as well. I'm not too sure, Earl, but I'm sure that also happens. But again, what I mentioned in terms of the support, this could be a deal breaker to students. And we see that in terms of technical assistance. Not all students are tech savvy. And so there may be some who would need the extra help. How do they do that? Very good. Excellent insights. Very good that you have that. And so it's important for us to see this sort of capacity building through the different forms. Many universities now are using AI for support, 24/7 support. So you have a chatbot and students can certainly come and interact and get support. So these are some of the things that persons will talk about in terms of supporting students when it comes to the learning management system. When you are applying for your program, you should not ignore those. In fact, those are actually embedded within the Appendix 1 checklist. And I often tell persons, although it's a checklist, you need to respond to each item in that Appendix 1 item, which is really showing that your commitment to quality blended and online. Even if it's a blended, your responses should be substantiated with a clear evidence of how do you respond to those things. It is important for us to know that, because even if it's not applicable, that you will go about and say this is not applicable. Why? Because why? Your program is not being viewed by one person, it's being viewed by a committee. So sometimes someone may have a question that is just, and you may just have your program sent back because it's just unclear it's not clear to everyone. So as much as you can when it comes to the appendix in the proposal document, that we look at that, and we are so happy that we have that embedded within our program proposal document and our quality assurance policy that we want to ensure. Yes. All right. Thank you, Devon. No problem. So one of the essential things that we want to look at, and this is a given in terms of the policy, evaluators look for the teaching policies, they look for the intellectual property policies, the data privacy policies. They look for policies that shows your commitment to digital, so those digital integrity items and ensuring that effective policies are clear, they are accessible, and that they are regularly reviewed. It's not something that has been 15 years and and it's implemented in one program and it's not implemented in the other. So these are some. Now the last one here, this disaster recovery is a big one that many universities never considered before COVID-19. And this needs to be a central part in terms of supporting students in case something happens. And so it's something that we mention. All right. Accessibility standards. In terms of accessibility here, and we recommend the use of using frameworks that would help you. For example, using Universal Design for Learning would allow you to address this. In our guidelines, we actually have some recommendations of what you can do to really address those accessibility standards. So they may look at your interface, and they may look and see, is your content robust enough to be interpreted in many different ways and different users? Are you focusing on one particular way? And they obviously evaluate things like, are you catering for persons who may not necessarily be, how you cater for persons who, the divergent learners, hearing impaired, visual, and so those elements that you can have within your course, can your elements in your course use a screen reader? And so a simple thing like using alt text and having your images having an alt text can be whether or not it changes or it passes the accessibility standards. And right now we have a number of checks in certain systems that would tell you whether or not the system passes the accessibility standards. We also really want, again, thus to reinforce the student support systems and orientation, academic advising, so library services, tutoring, all those student support systems. I like the last two. How are you supporting the disability services? How are you providing that? How are you providing support to mental and health? And they may think it's not necessary. And one of the simple things you can do is to ensure you have those things embedded. Our course outline template actually have some of those elements addressed. And so you may just refer, okay, in addition to what's in the course outline template, you will also ensure that you highlight these during your course sessions or before the session class actually begins as part of the orientation. So you need to respond to those. Another important aspect I want to say here, you can see here, if you just reflect on this when you look at assessment, because oftentimes we get the programs being sent back because persons just want to, what Simonson will argue for is sameness. And so they don't think equivalent, they think sameness. And so when you have an online program and you're thinking essay, you're thinking paper 10 pencil test, you're thinking final exam, you need to ask yourself, is this something the learner is going to do even in the world of work? And I usually ask persons that because when it comes to actually making that transfer, one of the key challenges we get, especially to these online programs, is that you're not allowing the students to build those competencies that allow them to move away from saying, okay, I'm doing a test. So thinking about the various forms of assessment provide a very, very effective way of making that alignment, which is why we encourage a lot of discussions. And this is why we also encourage peers to interact and assess each other's work. And what does that look like? How do you train persons, or is there an orientation provided when you're doing peer evaluation and so forth? All right, so when you do your presentations, is it a certain percentage and you just put group percentage, a very high group percentage, and how do you account for the individual contributions within the group? I know this has been a key challenge and comment. They will ask you about in terms of evaluating students' work, individual contribution when it comes to groups. So you may think about a group work policy that you want to put together to ensure that students themselves can actually rate each other as part of the contribution, and that you can get evidence in doing so. All right, now this is not only for online. I think this is an effective thing for even face-to-face programs. And I know this is in your mind, the whole idea of integrity, especially in the line of artificial intelligence. I know some persons may be thinking, how do I prevent students from using AI for my assignments? Do I now say that the assignment has to be done in person? What are some of the things I should encourage? What are some of the recommendations? What are some of the things you will do? What are some of the things that you begin to reflect on? Anybody, let's get some feedback. I'd love to hear some of the things that persons have been doing. I know you're doing it. I know some of the things you're doing. How are you using or your assessment to ensure you address the integrity issues? Anyone? It's 60 of us here.
Okay, this is Rona here.
Hi, Rona. Thank you.
We have where the students have to do a project, okay? And they do the project out of class and so on. And they can use AI, they can use Google Translate, etc., whatever they want to do. But the marks for the assessment is actually done as an oral presentation. So you have to come to class and present your information. And so even if you use AI and whatever else you may use to whatever, when you come to present, then, you know, you're now doing it in a kind of real classroom, and we can easily recognize if it's AI talking or if you are the one presenting. And so we can assess things like your pronunciation and your intonation and that kind of thing. And this is what you get the mark for. So we're not saying don't use AI, you do whatever you wish, but then you have to do it as an oral assessment where we can now look at the other things, your delivery, etc.
Thank you so much, Rona. This is, I mean, and was this something you were doing before, or this was it that the AI has encouraged you to be more creative?
Yeah, AI has encouraged creativity because before we gave the mark for the written part, you know, but AI has encouraged, okay, no, we're not giving the marks to AI, we're giving the marks for actual presentation. So AI has helped in that respect.
And by the way, and these are ideals or competencies that they can now tick off in terms of communication, being critical thinking, because now it's not just, you know, and you are able now to see the evidence and evaluate it. Michelle, thank you so much. Thank you, Rona. Appreciate that.
Hi, good day, Dr. Hill. I seem to be following Rona, but anyway, I am thinking here that we don't stop them from using AI, but we guide them, because what I've found helpful with AI is in terms of academic writing. But I first tell my students, you have to think the thought. You cannot let AI think the thought for you. You have to structure something and then put it to AI, and they now would frame it. So I have been able to cut down on teaching academic writing and guide the students towards AI and how AI will phrase certain responses and so on. But the thought must first come from the student. So I encourage them in that regard.
Thank you, Michelle. I really appreciate that. And the reason why I pause here, and I want to thank Angelique for putting the call. If we can put, I know Javid or Mark, the link to the AI policy, the UE AI policy. It's official, I think, from October 2025. It was approved. And so you do have the university having standards, and you do have options. You do have options in there. And I think one of the key things, and I'm happy Angelique saying, is that you let the students know. The students need to know, what's your position on using AI? Are you encouraging its use? And so forth. But this is not a session on AI, but I can't ignore mentioning that. I can't ignore mentioning that. And we ought to be very critical and creative. I think AI has really encouraged, I'm not using the word forced, motivated us to be more creative. Diane, can you explain what you mean by comparative assignments in your strategy?
Yes, I just, I thought about it this semester when I was looking at assessments. So I usually give the same assessments every year, right? So this year I decided to look online to see what is new, in terms of my course and the assignments that I give. And the literature showed one study where you give the students the assignment, they do it using AI and they do it using, the normal means from them searching and stuff, and then you compare and let them see, where the flaws are, like the references could be outdated or it could be just wrong. And I think it's just, to get them to understand that it should not just, click on something, click on AI, whatever they use, and take it as law. So it's just something in progress for this semester.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for that. I mean, obviously it had to, you're thinking, and this is what we call a recipe for really renovating our assessments. And I think I know it's a challenge, but persons have been really, really creative. For some persons actually use the strategy that Sharon Hutchinson mentioned in terms of it has proved the move from online to more face-to-face multiple choice because you may want persons to really validate. So some programs that say, okay, no, we're going to revert. We did this during remote teaching, but we're going to revert our multiple choice to face multiple choice, and that's an option. It may not be the only option, but that's an option certainly. We see Angelique is saying we would have to talk to them about the ethical issues, the race, the gender, the biases, and that is so important because the large language modules are trained on biased North data that's on the North, focusing in the North, which is I'm happy that UE AI Center is. We're trying to create our own that makes it more socioculturally contextual. And I do know that's a key challenge, Angelique. So if, for example, I ask AI to give me an image of a successful leader, I would be male, white. And so these are the things that we have to really train. So I think one of the key things, Angelique, is the whole idea of AI literacy. You're hinting to the AI literacy. It's not just giving them the policy, but I think embedding that within our program structure. How are you going to ensure? And I know who it was, Michelle, in terms, you hinted to it in terms of how do we encourage the use of for it in writing and that whole process. We guess what? They're doing it, they're using it. So we ought to really encourage them to use AI in a social responsible manner. All right, so I think we've seen some really good ideas. I know some other ideas that we see persons making things quite local. When you're creating scenarios, you create scenarios with things you know AI will not have. And perhaps think about salami slicing your assessment. So you know that if a student comes with this outline or this annotated bibliography that you would have done, and then midway and in the end, it doesn't, we know that these are some of the strategies that some persons can use in order to see how well they make that link. All right, they make that link. So there are some effective assessment strategies. Think about what you look for. Again, the course material, the description, the rubric, I mentioned that already, the evaluation data, and evaluators, these are some of the things they will look for. And I want to thank you for sharing some of your strategies. When we do our session on the policy, by the way, in Teaching Week in March, we're going to focus on AI Teaching Week. So make sure you subscribe and follow and so it is important. Yes, Sharon, localizing is an important part. Antoinette actually hinted something in terms of, I want to go back to it. How do you assess whether the thought first comes from the student? And Junette, you mentioned that, and Antoinette seconded. And so, how do you know? Because when we're doing writing, it's not just the exact words that people borrow, they also borrow ideas. And I think that getting the students to understand that is a key part of that writing process. The question some may ask is, can we cite AI? We're going down a rabbit hole here, but can we cite AI? I'm being intentional by using that. Anyone think that we could cite AI? We've done it. We've said, okay, attributed, but can we? Can we? Some person saying yes, yes. Angelique is saying yes. Javid is saying yes. We're citing. Is it citing or is it attribution or what is it? Because copyright is only owned by a human being. So it makes it a very contentious issue when it comes to actually acknowledging where the idea comes from and so forth. But persons have been attributing and saying, this has been vibe coded. I do that. I may say, yes, the idea is my idea, but I took some time to really instruct the chatbot to create something for me. And I can indicate that in a very transparent way. Some persons have argued that, can I make money in it? So that's a whole different thing altogether. All right. So because answers may be different, yes, attributed. So Diane, you are seeing where I'm going. As you said earlier, a table was created by AI, but I had to give AI that content, and I had to say, okay, you know what? I have this table. It looks kind of bland. Can you make it? Obviously, I need to know what it can do and what it cannot do. And so this is where the time that you will take to create that table and make it look visually appealing, you can ask AI to do that. It's your table, but AI actually enhanced it. And so you need to, are you going to cite AI? So yes, you can give it many ideas. So these are some of the things that we think about. Hey, here comes the fun part. Yes, here comes the fun part. Sure, you can, the content and AI can summarize and so forth. Yes, we can say that we have been doing this kind of enhancement through tech tools such as Word and exactly. Thank you, Angelique, for being straightforward with that. Here's what the fun part. The fun part, we are going back to the document. Make sure you have access to the workbook. I want to make sure you have access to that. Take a screenshot of this, or someone could take a screenshot and share it in the chat. We are going to keep your same groups that you were in. And we are going to do this for, can we do it in 35 minutes? I say 40. I'm sure we can do this in 35 minutes. We can do this in 35 minutes. There are two programs. I try to keep the program summary very short. I didn't put too much in it. So if you look at the description, and they are found on what page? Somebody help me. What page in the guideline? If you follow those, there are two programs, the BS in Digital Media Management and the Postgraduate Diploma in Community Health. All right. So you will get the opportunity to give us your feedback. You're going to take on the role as a committee evaluating. Think about you evaluating another department or someone else colleague's program, and you're taking on this critical eye of evaluating the program, the health of the program. And what I want you to do is to analyze the proposal, analyze it. You're going to review it using a scorecard and a tip sheet. And by the way, in the document, you will get a link to actually open a different a Word document that actually has that. You can reshare the Google Doc. Please reshare the Google Doc. Please reshare the Google Doc. I'll try and share it. And so forth. I want you to justify which standard of UWI policy, the Oscar rubric, or the CIRAC is being violated. Some of you did some of that a while ago in the red flags. You did some of that away. And I want the group to decide the verdict. Are you going to approve? Are you going to defer, which means fixes, or you reject? 3, are you going to approve? Are you going to defer changes or reflect? Thank you, Javed. All right. By the way, let me just go quickly on the page. So let me see what page that this activity falls on. So this activity falls on page, I should have put the page number, page 16. Page 16. All right. You do have a link to the reviewer scorecard, and I'll put the link of the viewer scorecard in the chat one time so you can capture that, because this is where you're going to put your group response. All right. By the way, it's one document that everybody will be accessing. Everyone has edit rights, so only edit your group response. Is that clear? Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay, I sent the link only to one person. But on the document itself, you should be able to get the link to the scorecard. All right, I just posted the scorecard again, but you can actually get the link from the shared document on page 16. Any questions? Do you accept the mission? I'm playing Mission Impossible now.
Yes, we do.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do, Antoinette. I really love your spirit and said, yes, you do. In 35 minutes, you can do that. I've tried to make it quite short so we can do that. We're crowdsourcing because you have at least 5 persons per group, and we're seeing some persons. We may have to reshuffle some persons to get some equity in terms of group size because some persons may have left. But we are mindful this part actually links to the third learning outcome. And it's an important part because it will help you to really make that leap into some of the things that we may take for granted. So let's open the breakout rooms. You know what breakout room you're in. Let's take 35 minutes for that. If you need additional 5 minutes, you have it, but let's try and do it in 35. All right.
Oh gosh.
Welcome back. We are on the dot. We are on the dot back. We know that most of you were able to complete it in record time, and I want to thank you. I hope you were able to see some insights into our program, The Gaps. Yes or no? In the chat, yes or no? You were able to see that? Yes or no in the chat? Yes or no? Everybody. If we can share. Yes or no?
Yes, we saw the loopholes.
Yes. Someone sound very faint.
I don't know why am I looking faint? Why am I sounding faint?
Yeah, it sounds very,
Some
very
of us are
faint.
using the reactions.
Some of us use the reactions. Excellent, excellent. So thank you. I mean, I noticed most groups were able to finish, and I know what we're gonna do. Here's what we're gonna do. I'm just gonna give you like a summary, and what I want you to do is to add to this if it's different. Can we agree on that? That way, I will just give a summary, and if your group findings are not there, then you deliberate on that. Here's what we're going to do. So for the first program, the proposal, anything your group would like to add if it's not there? If it's not there, all right? If it's not there.
Yeah, we would like to add one thing. Sorry, I'm speaking on behalf of Group 3.
Okay, go
Tennille,
ahead,
by the way.
Tennille.
For the
Tennille.
modality alignment, they also academic advising also has to be done in person on site. So yes.
So that's an issue.
Yeah, that is a big issue.
So we could add that. Thank you, Tennille. Thank you, Tennille. Anyone else? Any other
Well,
group wants to?
in terms of assessment design, Group 4 also found that they didn't mention what the other 40% is supposed to be with respect to assessment. They only mentioned 60% final exam.
Right, and they mentioned it that online. So I guess students can infer that the 40 might be online, but they're not too sure.
Right, exactly. It's not
They're not
properly
sure. It's not
stated.
clear. So that's clear. Excellent. Thank you. Whoa, Antoinette and
That's Group 4. Yeah.
Group 4. Woo! Go Group 4.
Oh,
All right.
one more thing, sorry, from Group 3, I'm speaking on behalf of Group 3.
Yes.
It is advertised as an asynchronous course, but there are live sessions. So there's a session where you have to have that discussion. So it's not truly asynchronous.
Right. So that's the idea of truth.
Yes.
False advertising. The ACTT often gets those. They often see those. And sometimes ACTT will say, you have approved face-to-face. We're seeing you promoting a program and a flyer online. Please take that down. Hello? So, yes, let's move on to the next program. Can we move on?
Yes.
Great. The other program. Diploma in Community Health.
Good.
$40 hours in 1 week.
Yes, that was big.
Good. So they fail. That's a red flag right there. I know one group, and I saw it because when I went to the group, I saw that the 400-page PDF course packs. Some group and 90 minutes raw Zoom recordings. Oh my, oh my, oh my. Any other thing you want to add? Any other thing?
There was one thing.
Go ahead. Celia?
Celia, go
Just
ahead.
wanted to, similar to the case before, they did say that 80% of the grade, and they explain how that was determined, but one, we don't know what the other 20% is based on, as well as the 80% is based on both an exam and a clinical assessment. So we don't know the breakdown, basically. There was no details about that.
Yeah, so that's kind of blind spot. Go ahead.
And there was also no details about this face-to-face element with respect to the regional students.
Yes.
We also realized that they did not include the video summaries. It wasn't in a way that you could include persons with different learning styles or special needs.
Right.
So because there were no transcripts or captions to the Zoom recordings.
Yeah. Imagine you guys got all that from a very short summary. Can you imagine a full program? How much things when someone do an external review? So I think you guys did excellent. Excellent. You all got A's. All right, you all got A's. If you have to evaluate Learning Outcome 3, the committee has done its job. You have done your job. So give yourselves a round of applause. What I've done in the document, you may be asking, but what does a good passing program looks like? I've actually added one in the document. You could look at that in your own time, but I've actually added a very short summary in the shared document, the book guide. There is a Master's in Sustainable Caribbean Tourism, and it shows you some of the things that would allow a program to pass, and so it actually has that. All right, so I want to thank you for your commitment. I know that this was a kind of time bound on 1 o'clock and 3 hour session, but I want to thank you for your commitment to stay to the end. We have 5 minutes. And in that 5 minutes, I want to perhaps ask you to express your muddiest points. We'll take 2 minutes for that, and then we'll take 3 minutes for doing a short reflective activity. Muddiest point. Let's keep going. Muddiest points. You can add them to the chart, and you can also.
Sorry, I don't know what a muddy point
Muddy
is.
means it's still
Oh, okay.
unclear.
Okay,
Yeah,
got it.
muddiest point. As some persons who say muddy as. Yeah.
Oh, you mean clear as mud? Okay.
Clear as mud. Clear as mud. Which would say, so Sharon is saying notional hours. Very good. That's great. And what we've done, Sharon, is that we've those two calculators. We are hoping to address that because we do know that's an area that remains a challenge for many persons. I think some persons, when they see numbers, they just go, but we certainly will. The templates. So the templates, if someone can put the link to the templates, that would be great. You can download the templates and review them based on some of the things that we would have mentioned, sorry. Thank you, Tennille. I know you have to go. Knowing all the violations. Well, Lisa, you don't have to know all the violations, which is why we take this approach. So we've included some links, and one of the things I want to include is the web consortium on accessible guidelines. So you could actually, it's in the document as well, but I just felt I should also put that. What constitutes substantive change? So go ahead. Catherine, I think your hand was up. Go ahead.
That's what I wanted to say when I realized everybody else was putting it in the chat. So I went ahead and put it in the chat.
Yeah. Substantive change. When it comes to ACTT, the main thing they're looking for is you have a face-to-face program, you are offering X amount of courses face-to-face. Are you now going to offer more than 60% of those in the online? Then you may not necessarily need to apply for substantive change. If your threshold is below that, then if it's only digital, delivering digital, then but remember within there are other things that recognize a substantive change if you're changing the outcomes, if you're changing and so forth. But if you're just translating to an online and you're just translating 10% of your program, then that would not constitute substantive change. So we've seen some persons who say, okay, we have some requirement to make the course more flexible. We've made a good analysis that some of the outcomes can be done. Theoretical part can be done online. So we want to do those part online, but we will keep the rest face-to-face. And that obviously is a good case that you can make. All right. So I'm hoping what we're hoping to do as well is to continue to provide additional support in breaking this down. So the guidelines document that we have, I'm hoping that you can share that as well. All right, Javed has posted the link to there. All right, before you go, I want to thank you so much. And Mr. Garcia has placed the link for the evaluation in the chat. We're really happy if you can share that with us. But I want to allow you to take part in this reflective. You only select one of them. All right, he has put it in the chat. So I just want to share your key takeaways from today's session. Just choose one to reflect on. Given today's session, describe your readiness for adopting online. What one change will you make to your own course or program proposal based on today's activity? So think about one of those. We want to thank you. We know that some of you have classes to go to, but certainly we want to share that, and I will share some of the feedback from the wider group. So I will move to that slide. So we'll keep it here for a while and take away Diane. Go ahead, Diane.
Just wanted to ask a quick question. So if I wanted my courses to go officially blended, is it true that the entire program has to be blended, or we can just do one course at a time?
You can do one course at a time, and because you're building capacity. And what you can do, there's some faculty who need additional handholding, some different support, and all your courses don't need to be blended. And so we certainly, and by the way, we do offer consultation, Diane. So if, for example, you say, okay, this is a concept I have, I want a quick 30-minute virtual session, we can meet with you. We're hoping that from today's session that you get some insight of how you want to change things. Especially now and I'm happy that I can't remember who mentioned it, but in terms of being relevant to your stakeholders, these are some of the things that we really mindful of, because we know there are some institutions that are making those changes and they're in the region. And so if we are not really addressing some of our programs, we just want to be, then we know our students are going to go where the programs are. So we ought to be very thoughtful about the changes that we need to make. All right, Lisa is saying key takeaway of the various models for blended delivery. Angelique is saying a very informative discussion. I'll put the link to the Mentimeter, if someone can put the link to the Mentimeter again. Much more ready for blended. Refer to guidelines as I make the changes to the program. Are you still at the pit stop? Are you still the GSP? Are you still the GSP? I mean, are you just taking, I'd really love to see where some of you say based on your journey where you are. But closer alignment, somebody's saying closer alignment with the OSCAR framework, saying some things may not have done with much consideration. Very good. Thank you, Mark. All right. That checklist provided a couple of years ago freaks me out. Joanne, can you open your mic? Joanne,
Yes.
what are you?
There was when we were considering doing a blended program, we got an appendix
Yes.
with 5 major sections and many subsections, including things that were out of our remit. At least so it seems. So that's why I came to this particular session, to see if I could get the courage to go back.
Yes. Oh
So I
my
actually
God.
I like the idea of one course at a time, but
Yes.
we already have some set programs. For example,
Mhm.
teaching English as a foreign language,
Mhm.
with the number of Venezuelans that we've had in the country, and we still don't know what's going to happen in the
Yeah.
future, whether they'll be in and out. There are community groups and parishes popping up all over the country teaching what they think is English. And so some of them might want to do our program, and some of them have applied, but they can't be leaving where their full-time jobs and their community work. So obviously we need to be thinking about asynchronous. Otherwise, they'll go online and get
Yeah.
whatever American stuff there is and be applying American English to our context, which is a whole bacchanal.
Yes.
So we have many, many reasons in linguistics to want to pursue, basically to Caribbean domination, to take over the world.
Yeah.
Okay. But that checklist was like, whoo.
Yes, it is. And by the way, without thinking about a checklist, if we don't do it when it comes to ACTT, they're going to say, but you haven't done the Oscar. You have not really reflected on it for myself. So I'm really happy that you're being truthful about the whole process. It can be done. And what we've done, and perhaps something I'm just thinking on my feet here, I'm in my chair actually, is that we actually did a kind of sample response. I think Dr. Jones, a sample response to those elements of what a good response look like. So we can make that an instructional artifact and share it with persons. We can share it with all the persons who would have attended today's session as a bonus. All right? Joanne, I hope that would help, because when you're responding, I guess some of those areas are kind of reified, and so having a session with one of us would help substantiate, but I'm hoping that this document can help as a template.
That's wonderful, and looking forward to delving into it further. But I also just put my link to the appendix just to confirm that is actually what I was talking about, or if I'm off track. But that I could come and harass you all personally some other time.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so someone is verifying on understanding in terms of the checklist. This particular checklist, yes, is part of the whole process. Yes. So thank you for, it's a revised checklist. It says 2023, is it? We just have to ensure we use the most, I think it's 2023 is the most recent QAU guidelines, but certainly yes. New appendix.
I'm not sure this is, I'm not seeing a date on this. I think I just separated it out of a larger document, but
Yeah,
I'll
somebody was asking in the chat. Yeah, oh yeah. So I will say let's go with the most recent one, which is on our website.
Okay, thanks.
And it should have the checklist embedded. It should
Okay,
have.
thank you.
Sometimes, yeah, all right. Thanks so much. Sati, definitely be in touch with us. Sylvia, thank you for joining. I seen you. Your selfie or your
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
So thanks so much, everyone. Thanks so much.